Tennessee Sports Radio and TNSportsRadio.com.
Welcome back to the program. Stop by and see us live at El Chico's, the Merchants Drive just off Cedar Lane. Ran across, I thought, a very good column on a website you might want to start to check out, Elite Daily. And probably more targeted to young guys, not old guys like me, but I find it to be an interesting site with opinionated columns that pop up on my Facebook page. We're joined now by Marco Sereno, who talked about the Stephen A. Smith situation and the punishment he received. Marco, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Dave. Hey, thanks so much for reaching out to me.
I wanted to ask you, in general, what made you decide to address this topic about Stephen A. Smith's suspension 1 week off the air on multiple platforms from ESPN?
Well, I thought it was an interesting story from the get-go. I'm from New Jersey, so when Ray Rice had his incident in Atlantic City, it was fairly well covered, and people were asking about it. And then the league, for their reasons, which at one level can be justifiable, but at many levels can't be, and they've received a fair amount of criticism for it. You know, when they handed down the punishment of just 2 games, it definitely set off some alarms. And the way Stephen A. covered it, one of the things that really surprised me was the fact that the spotlight went away from the actual story, the actual, problem of domestic violence that you see way too often among athletes, and took it to him and his criticism of the subject, and then the subsequent sort of avalanche that it created, drawing criticism from other members of the media, from other websites, and being in a position in the media where I've worked in media relations before for teams and also worked for Major League franchises, I can sort of take a step back, take everything in, process it, and then write about it. So I thought it was a really interesting subject, and the way it was handled by ESPN, you saw how the dominoes fell, and so I got a chance to look at it and analyze it.
You went back and listed some issues at ESPN. There was Mike Tirico, who's made some unsavory comments, according to many reports. There has also been Sean Salisbury taking pictures that nobody wants to see of himself and sending them. Harold Reynolds had somewhat of a weird confrontation with an intern. The bottom line is, in my opinion, Sean Salisbury and Harold Reynolds are expendable. Mike Tirico is a heck of a talent that you want calling games. Stephen A. Smith has contacts throughout the NBA and is good at what he does and is a great balance, even though I don't care for the show, with Skip Bayless. The bottom line is, this is not about what's right and wrong, but who's more valuable, in my opinion. Do you disagree?
No, I don't, and that's where I saw ESPN making that stance. Now, I think there's got to be, in an overall view of ESPN, did you get a chance to read These Guys Have All the Fun? The big tome about the history of ESPN that came out about a few years ago?
Yeah, I've read some excerpts of that, yeah.
Okay. I went through the whole book, and much like many sort of closed-off situations, ESPN's an enclave to itself, so it sometimes does lend itself to more boorish behavior because there's such a central focus of it. I do agree that a lot of things have to be measured when you punish someone of the magnitude of Stephen A. You do sort of the cost-benefit analysis, much like, a coach at Tennessee has to do for them, or even when the administrators decided to take their action against Coach Pearl. It's does the punishment fit the crime? from the initial outset, it doesn't look like it does, but when you look at the value of Stephen A. to the brand, to the ESPN business, you know, John Hooker, John Skipper. John Hooker's from Blues Traveler. John Skipper is the president of ESPN. He's sort of in this, you know, no-win situation, and he's got to make some really tough calls there. And, you know, you can't get it right, but you got it at least fairly close to the pen.
Let me ask you this. You said you've been in the public relations business, and I think anybody in media to some extent has a better feel for public relations than the average person. I have found this entire thing handled by the NFL, handled by the Ravens, that he's applauded coming back, ESPN's deal. I've found the whole thing incredibly uncomfortable and bizarre. I mean, the one thing I might disagree with a little bit in your column is you said Stephen A. Smith's apology rang hollow. I thought it sounded sincere. I don't necessarily know that it means he doesn't think that women can provoke men, but I thought it rang sincere. But as a whole, this has been totally mishandled by everybody.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I know that I understand that the league had their protocol to handle things. Once the Greg Hardy situation in Carolina is settled, he will certainly receive a far more severe penalty, you know, because his action went to trial. The league, again, they're in a no-win situation here. If they come down heavily and give him 6-8 games, you know, for an incident that didn't go through the judicial system, it makes it seem onerous, and Roger Goodell has certainly earned that moniker for the way he's treated people. Conversely, you do a lot of brand damage to that. One of the articles I saw from a site that's also geared more for people of my generation is a site called Jezebel, and they were extremely upset with the way the league handled it. My colleague Julian Something also suggested that it was a ridiculous penalty, you know, versus the suspensions for PED use and drug use, which violate the integrity of the game. So this is a violation of the integrity of the brand and brand damage. So, you know, Roger Goodell did sort of take a more lenient stance, and he's going to take his medicine for that. I do not believe that you should give someone a hero's welcome when he's back for that. Conversely, though, I was in Philadelphia as an Eagles fan and later an employee when Michael Vick was on the team, and he was constantly harangued for his role in the dogfight scheme. But this was after he did his time. You know, he paid his debt to the side. He served the sentence that was down. So, you know, with the punishment should come a modicum of forgiveness. But I do agree this is a very complex situation here, and I think the league probably needs to have more of an involved process the way ESPN has handled it. Bring more people in on this, you know, bring in maybe a couple outside consultants who can, you know, stick their finger out the window and tell you which way the wind is blowing in that sense.
We're talking with Marco Sereno with the Elite Daily. Marco, let me ask you this, though. As you mentioned, you know, the four-game suspension for drug use or PED use, and then Ray Rice gets 2. Is that going to set a precedent where if somebody else gets in trouble, let's say, hypothetically, for abusing their wife or girlfriend, do they say, you can't, if you give me more than 2 games, I'm going to complain because that's what you gave Ray Rice?
I think that is probably the worst thing to come out of it. Maybe not the players will take that stance, but maybe more of the Players Association, who must vigorously and vehemently to defend the players, whether they have to do so with their fingers over their nose and another hand over the eye, to do that. Yeah, it is a dangerous precedent being set, and I think the league probably will at some point this year come out with a more structured process of, if you get busted, it's got to be at least 4 games for the initial arrest. If anything happens, if there's a call made to your house and police get involved, it should be at the very least commensurate with the initial suspension to the drug abuse policy. So I'm with you there that there should be more structured punishment, and that's probably something that might have to be tinkered to the collective bargaining agreement, but I think it's something that is in the brand and the league's best interest.
Well, you mentioned the league's best interest and, the image that they want to put out. And it seems like the league took a big hit over the past couple of days with, you have players getting suspended 4 games for drug use and 2 games for Ray Rice. But if the NFL is concerned about their image, why didn't they suspend Ray Rice more?
I would probably say, then, I'm an analyst. I'm certainly not an expert. I think it had to do with the extent to which the case was prosecuted, because it didn't go to trial or there was no indictment handed down. That may have led to more lenient suspension. And some people probably should also be mentioning Ray Rice's star power. This is a guy who's one of the elite backs in the league, one of the more well-known players who's won a Super Bowl, who's a big draft pick among fantasy football. So just as maybe the league would have come down a little harder on, a Jacquizz Rodgers or, say, who am I thinking of here? Maybe like a Bryce Brown type, a secondary guy who doesn't have that same notoriety, maybe a change of pace back who isn't getting 300 touches a year. Maybe he gets a more severe penalty. But in terms of, where they came down on it, they probably did err or wanted to err on the side of caution. The big question is going to be what they have to say to some of their sponsors who, for instance, like PepsiCo has a female CEO. That's going to be where the progress, if it does come from, will happen when they talk to the groups who invest in the league and sponsor the league, actually get a chance to say, hey, we don't like the way you handled it, we think you guys should do this.
Marco Sereno, Elite Daily. Again, fantastic job, Marco. Someone needed to point this out. I thought you did a good job. Where all can we follow your work?
You guys can go to EliteDaily.com. I actually just finished up a piece on Patrick Patterson and Richard Sherman and their little stuff here. I did have one question, though, about maybe a school that you've heard of called Vanderbilt. How do you think Coach Franklin's going to make the transition from Nashville to Happy Valley?
I think it'll be good first year at Vanderbilt with James Franklin's talent. I think then Vanderbilt will slip off. That tells you what I think about James Franklin. I think he's a very good coach. I'm in the minority of this area and believing that. I think at Penn State that he's going to do a really good job.
Okay, great. I'm also a huge Penn State fan, so in terms of that, and I'm also looking forward to seeing what Jordan Matthews brings to Lynch. It's gonna be nice to have a receiver who's taller than 5'10". on my beloved Eagles.
Thank you, Marco. I appreciate it. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about some of the key position battles. Tennessee opens camp tomorrow. Andrew Drago with a fantastic column, also the